Hey guys, today it's time for a Game of Thrones history lesson with your boy Bam. Today we're going to be focusing on the Valyrian freehold and how it helped shape the world of An Ice and Fire as we know it today and the continents of Westeros and Essos. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Today if we were to go to Valyria, Valyria is really just a smoking ruin of what it was before. It's just a memory of this long lost civilization. But if we think about it, Valyria is actually home to one of the show's most popular characters, Daenerys Stormborn of House Targaryen. But before we even get there, let's draw back to a time before Valyria was Valyria and talk about their origins. All of Valyrian history dates back to a group of peaceful sheep herders on a small peninsula attached to Essos. Yep, tell all your friends, Dany came from sheep herders. About 5,000 years ago, the peninsula's name, you guessed it, Valyria. Who lived on it? The Valyrians were on the capital of Valyria. At this time, the Valyrians really weren't anything to be impressed by. They were just, like I said, simple sheep herders. That's all they did. But during this time, the big great empire that was running the place was known as the Old Empire of Geese. While the Valyrians were still held up on the shepherd lifestyle, Geese was already having an empirical golden age and spread across most of Essos. Their symbol was the harpy, and if you think about it on the show right now, you've already seen their symbol. You know what I'm talking about. The Old Empire of Geese prided itself on its ability to turn slavery from just slavery into that of an art form. That was what they excelled at the most. That and soldiers. Think about it, you know exactly who I'm talking about. Yep, Grey Worm and the rest of the Unsullied. The Empire of Geese had armies, they had slaves, they had land. They weren't going anywhere anytime soon. So they thought. Until the day when everything changed, when the Fire Nation attacked. No, I'm kidding. But everything did change when the Valyrians found dragons. It just so happens that these little sheep herders, the sheep herding civilization, one day they were just doing their thing and happened upon dragons on the 14 flames. The 14 flames in the world of A Song of Ice and Fire refers to a ring of volcanoes on the Valyrian Peninsula. Through trial and error, magic and whips, horns and spells, they eventually managed to turn these dragons and bend them to their will and get them to obey them. Think about this. Dragons are the Game of Thrones equivalent to weapons of mass destruction. And who has found them? These little sheep herders. From here, the Valyrians were able to start building a society, and they started calling themselves the Valyrian Freehold. The goat herders transformed into something else. Magic flowers in them. The Valyrians are now cited as having purple eyes and silver or white hair. These characteristics aren't found anywhere else in the world of Ice and Fire. Nowhere else. This is just them. And because it's just them, they wanted to focus on keeping their line pure. And we all know pure for them meant lots and lots of inbreeding. What's inbreeding, you might say? Cersei and Jaime, following the Targaryen tradition. Well, if you think about it, the entire Valyrian tradition. They're also told to be strikingly and inhumanly beautiful. And because purity is of the most importance to them, that was it. They would only marry in families among Valyrians, no one else, no outbreeding. On the Valyrian Peninsula, there's really only one way to go, and that's up if you look at the map, which means that they're going right up into the territory of Geese, or sheep herders turned dragon riders are now going to buck up into the biggest, largest, most decadent empire known to man at the time. And obviously, as you can guess, what resulted has thenceforth been called the Giscari Wars. The Empire of Geese didn't like the Valyrians stepping up their shit, obviously, and there was room enough for only one major power on the continent of Essos at the time. But if you think about it, they were all just really power hungry because Essos is massive. Anyway, There was a war that saw the lockstep legions face up against the Valyrians and their dragons. And as the picture I'm showing right now states, history tells us time and time again, an army against another army. If one army has dragons, the other army is screwedville, son. So the Valyrians went on a rampage. They had a lot of battles, a lot of wars against the Giscari, and in the end the Valyrians eventually took the Giscari Empire. The city of Gis was razed to the ground like nothing before. Like, the Valyrians just, to end the war, they've had it. We've had enough of this long scrimmage on, and at the end of the 5th war, that's 5 wars before, not the battles. There were many battles between these wars. This is the 5th war. The city of Gis was razed to the ground like nothing ever before it. The Valyrians drowned the city in dragonfire, and by the end there was nothing left of it but ash and skulls. The Valyrians even sowed the fields with salt, so nothing else would grow there. I mean, they literally poured salt into the earth like some psychos, so there nothing else can ever grow there again. They completely destroyed it. And then after the old empire of Gis fell, there's really nothing to stop the Valyrian dragon lords from sweeping across Westeros. And like the house sigil of our favorite house, well, not mine, but some people's favorite house, Targaryen, says, this was a conquest of blood and fire. Now when the Valyrians overtook the Giscari Empire, you see, the thing is, they learned slavery from them, and they continued that tradition of slavery. And the Valyrians wiped out race after race. They conquered people after people. They entrenched them into slavery. And the beginning of the Valyrian freehold is steeped in fire and blood, like I said. It takes a lot of death and destruction to topple an empire, and the Valyrians didn't hesitate to destroy he or she or anyone who didn't agree with them or who didn't bend the knee. And they just kept on going. But eventually the Valyrians would go on to reap what they sowed, fire and blood. But let me, if you would, allow me to paint you a picture of what Valyria happened to look like at the time. There's a lot of mystery surrounding them now and all of this, but let me tell you how amazing Valyria was, okay? At its apex, Valyria was the greatest city the world has ever known. Here's a passage from the book, just to let you know how amazing Valyria was, from the big GRRM himself. At its apex, Valyria was the greatest city the world has ever known. It was the center of civilization. Within its shining walls, 20 rival houses vied for power and glory in the courts and councils, rising and falling in an endless, subtle, often savage struggle for dominance. The Valyrians became so powerful in magic, but their magic was said to be rooted in blood, fire, a cruel type of magic. They carved rock, not with chisel, but with fire and magic. It was said that the Valyrian blood mages mated creatures with women to create beings not quite human or animal, but somewhere in between. Alright, no longer reading. It was here, during this time, that the Valyrians figured out how to make Valyrian steel. And in the show, you always hear this is Valyrian steel, and you wonder, what's the big deal about Valyrian steel? Well, when you're making Valyrian steel, apparently, no one really knows how it's done anymore. They wove magic and spells and dragon fire, I'm sure, and that made the Valyrian steel harder, stronger, sharper than any other form of weapon out there, and it was said to never lose its edge. If you were to take 2 knights of equal skill and put them in the battlefield together, but you gave one a normal sword and you gave one Valyrian steel, the Valyrian steel would be the deciding factor, the deciding edge. The Valyrians were said to have a number of magical items though. They had strange glass candles made of obsidian or dragon glass. They were said to be inventions of theirs allowing sorcerers to communicate with one another a world away. Some glass candles supposedly have survived since Valyria fell, and since the reintroduction of Dany and her dragons back into the world, these glass candles are burning again. So hey, who knows? But who can be sure though? Not even a learned maester, one who's mastered all the links on the chain, knows about things such as these. There are also rumors that they had things called dragon horns, said to bind a dragon to a person's will. But you know, let's move on. Let's go back to their attempts at slavery. Slavery was a form all over Essos. Like, everyone had slaves, but the Giscari turned it into an art form and the Valyrians learned it from them. What the Valyrians, however, would do with their slaves is that they searched for gold and other fine minerals beneath the earth. What they would have the slaves do is go down into these mines, and remember, these mines were hot, they were around volcanoes, and occasionally the slaves would encounter creatures hidden in the deep or the dark, known as fireworms, and sometimes all you would find of these slaves were like burnt corpses or lines etched out around them. The caves grew, not the caves, well, they are caves, but the mines grew hotter and hotter as they went deeper and deeper, and the Valyrians forced them to dig deeper and deeper. The mines got smaller, people would have to bend and curve to go in there, sometimes children were used, and no one ever knew while chipping away at the rock if you would just get more rock, or would you hit lava, would a fireworm burn you, would steam blast your face off. It was crazy. Revolts were common, but were mercilessly put down by the powerful sorcery of the Valyrians. When I picture hell, if I'm honest with you, this is what hell sounds like under there in those mines. Legend has it, however, that beneath there in those mines, that's where the first faceless man came from. And it was said that he gave the first gift of the faceless man to one of the slaves, and he would move on to give it to the masters themselves. But that's another story for another day. Later on, thousands of slaves were being shipped from Valyria to a new colony. They revolted and they took control, and they pulled a complete U-turn. Instead of going west like the Valyrians wanted, these dogs went north, just straight to the other tip, and founded the free city of Bravos in secret, so the Valyrians wouldn't know. That's exactly what I would do, if I'm all honest with you. If I was a slave being sent to the west and we revolted and took over the ship, I would completely break a U-turn as well and just hide, exactly like they did. And they went on to create Bravos. You guys know Bravos from season 4, 5 and 6, thanks to Arya. Hell, you heard about Bravos in season 1 from Syria Pharrell. I think here's a good place to end off the first part of our Valyrian history for today. I don't know how many parts this will be, but believe me, I will fill you in on all you want to know about Valyria. Feel free to leave comments, ask questions, and I'll answer all I can. Till next time, guys. Peace!